Okay, so what if I told you there was this massive ancient civilization? We're talking as advanced as Egypt or Mesopotamia, with these unbelievably complex cities. And it was just lost? Like completely forgotten for thousands of years. This isn't some movie plot, you guys. This is the real story of the Indus Valley civilization. And today, we're going to try and figure out what on earth happened to them. So take a look at this. This isn't a map of some modern city. No, this is Mohenjo-Daro, a metropolis that was buzzing with life more than 4,000 years ago. I mean, just look at that perfect grid layout. This was one of the biggest cities in the entire ancient world, part of a civilization that stretched over 1 million square kilometers. These people weren't just building houses, they were literally engineering the future. Which brings us to the big, the billion-dollar question, right? How does a civilization that's this powerful, this organized, just fade away? They leave behind these incredible ruins, but almost no clear answer about where they all went. That's the puzzle we are diving into today.
All right, so every good investigation has to start with knowing the subject. We're talking about what's known as the Harappan civilization, which blossomed in areas that are now modern-day Pakistan and India. For centuries, this incredible empire was literally buried and forgotten. So who were these people?
Okay, time to put on our detective hats. Our very first clue is a huge one, and it's written in the code of life itself, DNA. By carefully analyzing ancient human remains, scientists have started to piece together the actual genetic story of the people who built this lost empire.
You know, for decades, the story we were told went something like this. You had local hunter-gatherers, and then a big wave of migrants from the Fertile Crescent came in and taught them how to farm. It was a pretty simple, straightforward explanation. But as we're about to find out, the real story is so much more exciting. And then, boom, science just throws this massive curveball. New DNA evidence from Harappan burial sites didn't just poke holes in the old theory, it totally shattered it. And the story it tells instead is one of incredible homegrown ingenuity.
And this quote from the study, it basically says it all. The DNA shows, pretty definitively, that the local population figured out farming completely on their own. No big wave of outsiders bringing the knowledge, no mass migration. These people were total innovators, building this incredible civilization from the ground up. Honestly, this is a complete game changer in how we understand their story. So, now that we have a better idea of who the builders were, let's talk about what they built. And this is where things get, mind-blowing, to be honest. The ruins of their cities show a level of urban planning that was just light years ahead of its time. Just check this out. This is the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, and it's not just some old swimming pool. It's this massive public structure, perfectly waterproofed with natural tar or bitumen. We're talking about really sophisticated engineering, and it suggests a complex society that had organized public rituals. And believe me, it gets even better. They had covered sewers. That's something that wouldn't be common in a lot of European cities for thousands of years. Plus, hundreds and hundreds of wells for clean water. The level of foresight and planning here is it's incredible. These people were true urban visionaries. But the genius of the Harappans wasn't just in city planning. Oh no. They were also absolute masters of metallurgy, turning plain old rocks into amazing tools and beautiful works of art. Let's dig into a little of their ancient alchemy. So it all starts with something that looks like this: raw copper ore. Now, getting the pure metal out of this rock is not easy. It takes a deep understanding of chemistry and the skill to build furnaces that can get ridiculously hot. And yeah, the Harappans had it all figured out. And to really understand how they did it, modern researchers are actually rebuilding Harappan-style furnaces. How cool is that? This is experimental archaeology in action, and it's showing us just how brilliant their ancient techniques really were. And here you have it, the stunning result. A copper pot, perfectly preserved for over 4,000 years. This wasn't just some pot they cooked in. It was a symbol of their incredible skill, a piece of ancient technology that you can still hold in your hands today. Just amazing. Okay, so far we've painted this picture of a brilliant, innovative civilization. But there's another side to this story, a much, much darker one. Our next set of clues comes from the people themselves, from their bones. And what they tell us is a story of hardship, of violence, and of a society that was maybe on the brink of falling apart. There's always been this kind of romantic idea about the Indus Valley, that it was this peaceful utopia, a society without war or major inequality. But was it really? I've always been fascinated by this question. So let's see what the bones have to say.
The evidence is pretty stark. It turns out that as the civilization grew and the cities got bigger, life actually got tougher. The skeletons show a clear rise in both violence and disease over time, especially towards the end. So no, this was not a society at peace. And when you look even closer, the picture gets more grim. As the cities got more and more crowded, new diseases like leprosy and tuberculosis started to take hold, and if that wasn't enough, violence was also steadily on the rise. It looks like these people were facing a perfect storm of threats.
And here's what might be the most heartbreaking part of the whole story. The suffering wasn't shared equally. Not at all. The people who were buried in mass graves outside of the formal cemeteries, basically the outcasts of their society, they were the ones who suffered the most from both violence and disease. This was a society that was deeply divided. And get this, in one of those mass graves, half, and I'm going to say that again so it sinks in, half of the skulls showed evidence of violent trauma, 50%. We're talking men, women, and children. This goes way beyond simple inequality. This looks like a society that was literally at war with itself.
So I think we've finally arrived at the answer to our big mystery. The Indus Valley civilization didn't just vanish into thin air. It seems it was brought down by a perfect storm of climate change, social inequality, violence, and disease, all hitting at once. It wasn't a single sudden collapse, but more of a slow, painful unraveling.
Now, you might be thinking, wow, that's a fascinating story, but what does it really have to do with me today? Well, I think it has everything to do with us. The story of the Indus Valley is a powerful cautionary tale, and it's one we really, really need to listen to.
Just think about it for a second. Climate change, crowded cities, deep social inequality, violence. Do any of those sound familiar? The very same challenges that helped bring down one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world are the exact same challenges we're staring down today. It's a pretty sobering thought, isn't it?
The Harappans were brilliant. They were innovators. They were masters of engineering. But in the end, it wasn't enough. It turns out you can't out-engineer a changing climate and a society that's tearing itself apart. So the real question for us is, can we? What will we learn from their story? Because the answer to that question, well, it's going to define our future.